Here we go. It's the first full week of campaigning in the federal election. For the next 36 days, we'll be bringing you the latest details on the leaders, on the issues, the things you want to talk about and ask about. But first, we want to bring in CTV's chief political correspondent, Vassy Kapelos from Ottawa. We're taking a closer look at the strategy this morning, Vassy, behind these individual campaigns. Great job yesterday, by the way, watching you then. Good to have you on this morning. Based on what we've heard from the party leaders in the run-up to this election call, what are you hearing about the specific messaging on the campaign from each of these parties?
Well, there's actually a point of convergence, Anne-Marie. It's great to be with you this morning. I think particularly when you look at the Conservatives and the Liberals, the message is one of change. And obviously, here's how we're going to, I guess, bounce off that message and come up against the challenge that Donald Trump represents. I think it's interesting that there is that convergence around the message of change, because had Justin Trudeau stuck around, he would not be able to even deliver the idea that he could be changed from himself. But you could certainly hear that yesterday with Mark Carney in his campaign launch. In his initial remarks, he spoke about the 9 days he had been prime minister, all that he'd changed, which includes repealing two things that Justin Trudeau did: the carbon tax, the consumer carbon tax that is, and the capital gains tax changes. Visit to Europe. Look at all the change I've done in 9 days. Imagine how much more change could be ahead. And of course, the Conservatives' message is very much focused on change, the way it has been for the last 2 years since Pierre Poilievre assumed the leadership of the party. The difference, of course, his message has changed from the Liberal government the last 10 years, whereas Mark Carney is trying to accomplish the same message, but of course with the same party beneath him.
Yeah, and just really quickly, the NDP and the Greens and the Bloc.
Yeah, the Bloc and the Greens, I think, are centered on the message that we would expect of them. The Bloc's message is solely meant for Quebecers, and essentially the idea or the thesis put forward is the Bloc is the only party that can adequately or substantively defend solely the interests of Quebecers. What will be interesting to see is whether they're able to contend with the Liberals' ascent in public opinion polling in Quebec right now. The Bloc had been ages and eons ahead of every other party for a long time, and they've really struggled as of late. The Green Party is, not just focused on the environment, though that is what they're primarily known as. They will trickle out policy as they have in previous campaigns. They have this co-leader system right now, Elizabeth May and Jonathan Pedneau. So that'll be interesting to see the way in which that plays out. The concentration, or my understanding is most of the strategy will focus in and around Ontario and BC, where they see the biggest potential for additional seats, if at all possible. And finally, the NDP, they were in Quebec, and they will be in Quebec this morning, and then they're headed to Toronto, I believe, after that. They are focused on essentially lumping in the Conservatives and the Liberals as Conservatives. That's very much their messaging over the past few days. We're the only ones who will fight for the average Canadian is the message that they're trying to land, but they also contend with a huge challenge. Primarily, the Liberals' increases in public opinion polling have come at the expense of the NDP, who are at a point where they might be fighting for official party status.
Listen, we got a couple answers this weekend, one of which is what day we'll be voting, which is April 28th, and the other we found out where Mark Carney is going to be running, and that is in the Ottawa riding of Nepean. And just to set this up, the riding previously represented by Liberal MP Chandra Arya, whose name was first pulled from the leadership race, and then his nomination was revoked over the weekend. Carney's going to be running there now. We know this is a riding that's right next to Pierre Poilievre's, which will also make for an interesting race. But what happened here?
I wish I could tell you. There's really been no transparency around it, Anne-Marie. Mr. Carney received a question yesterday, I believe from Judy Trin. It was her second question there, one of the last questions he answered in the press conference about what had unfolded and why that selection was made. He pointed to, local factors as to why he wanted to run in that riding or run in Ottawa, but didn't really provide any clarity on what exactly happened with Chandra Arya, who has been an MP there for a number of years. The party also didn't provide much clarity in the nomination issue, but also, when they rejected his application, he, of course, had some controversy around particularly his lack of language skills. He couldn't speak French and didn't think that that was a necessity for a prime minister, but really no clarity beyond that. I think it is interesting just more generally that Mark Carney chose Ottawa to run in. There was a lot of speculation that it would be something like Toronto Centre or one of the more safe ridings in Toronto. They were contending between Toronto and Ottawa, both of which they felt were fairly safe seats.
All right, Vassy Kapelos, CTV Chief News Political Correspondent, CTV News Chief Political Correspondent. Good to have you with us this morning, Vassy. Thanks.
Great to be with you, Henry.